You're listening to Elite Spotlight, presented by Elite Artists Network. And now, here's your host, Michael Masci.
Well, today we have a very fascinating guest. We have Laurence Cotton here with us today. He's a public historian. He's currently a guest speaker with American Cruise Lines, and he is a respected film documentary producer. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Great to be here.
So we've had the opportunity to chat quite a bit, and I've listened to your presentations as well. And you have so much wonderful historic information. I want to go right to the beginning. I want to find out, what is it that put you on this path to becoming a historian or a speaker or and a documentary filmmaker?
Well, that's an interesting question to answer, because there are really multiple paths that brought me here. The filmmaking path is not necessarily the same as the path of being a speaker on riverboats here in America.
Right.
Although now they dovetail. But I did study film as an undergrad. It was a minor, the equivalent of a minor, although the institution I attended didn't even have traditional majors and minors. That was Hampshire College in Amherst, Mass. Ken Burns and I were classmates. We started out together. We studied with the same film faculty. I was part of a team where we produced a black and white documentary together, the equivalent of our sophomore year. I went on. I've always loved film, and I've been involved with film in one way or another, but career-wise, professionally, I went on to about a 25-year career in the public policy arena.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nonprofit management, state government, public broadcasting, in and out of public broadcasting. And it was years later before I returned to actively making films. I've been actively making films, you might say, I guess, since 2006 or 2007. And interestingly enough, it's right at that time that I also got into this line of work.
Okay.
The former title was River Lorian, which I really like.
Oh, I like that.
I don't know if it's trademarked, but it was utilized by another company.
Okay.
And the company I work for now, American Cruise Lines, does not utilize that term. I was a tiny little inscrutable ad on Craigslist once upon a time. I was frankly a little tired of beating my head against the wall, raising money 24/7 to support struggling nonprofit organizations. I needed a way out. I needed to do something different, to spread my wings, to be a little more creative.
Sure.
I was already on the board of many-year member of the board of directors of Columbia Riverkeeper, a conservation organization devoted to protecting the Columbia River.
Oh, wow.
I had, that was past tense, been very involved in helping to plan and execute the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial for Oregon and Washington, and to a certain extent, Idaho. And all of those things aligned, the stars aligned, and I answered this little ad, and I was in essence recruited and trained up very quick.
Yeah.
To serve as a River Lorian, meaning guest lecturer, guest speaker,
Right.
on a prior small fleet of riverboats that no longer operate because the prior company basically went out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that, those ships also were waylaid. They were decommissioned.
Right.
But I was recruited, actually, in between, I was recruited by American Cruise Lines. I went to the other company went out of business. I came back to American Cruise Lines, and I'm very glad indeed to be with this company at this point in time, because I have an opportunity not only to work on my home ground, the Columbia Snake River,
Mm-hmm.
which is where I started and my specialty, but I now have the opportunity to travel all over North America, which includes the Great Lakes and Canada, for a brother-sister company, American Cruise Lines and Pearl Seas.
Right.
And it allows me to spread my wings and get into a steep learning curve, to learn up, study up about other areas of the country, and to offer a series of hopefully animated programs that capture regional history. But because of my inclination and my original training is in cultural anthropology, I always include natural history, geology, and strong Native American content.
Okay. I think that's, I love working with this company too. And for one of the reasons, to get to meet people like you. I mean, you're very fascinating, and I've gotten to experience some of your talks here we're actually on the American Cruise Lines riverboat called the American Encore, which is one of our brand new ships. And and this has got to be intriguing to you, not only to be able to talk about this history, but to actually walk the grounds of the history you're talking about with the guests that are here. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Um, that's one part of your experience, but again, you're also into making film documentaries, and everybody loves documentary films. I love documentary films. Everybody watches them, and they're wonderful history for us to remember. But nobody really thinks about what's involved in taking an idea from history and turning it into a film. What's the process of getting one of your ideas to a finished product in the film industry?
Well, first, let me make this comment. All filmmakers are de facto storytellers, whether they're writers, producers, directors, showrunners for Hollywood drama, or whether they're regional documentary filmmakers covering various historical aspects of the United States, or our national story. Ken Burns likes to say he tells America's story. And really everyone in Ken's line of work and my line of work, we're all telling America's story in one way or another. And it takes a team. Just
right.
You see credits that run, if you sit through the credit scroll at the end of a Hollywood movie, it's enormous, the amount of personnel that are involved in all of their roles. Well, in public television, it's writ small. The budgets aren't nearly as large. It's a smaller number of people, but it's always a village. It takes a village to make even a short, modestly budgeted documentary film. And I've made films that have had big variations of budget and running length, from a half an hour to an hour and a half, and the budgets change accordingly.
Right.
First of all, there's research, tremendous amount of research. There's fundraising, there's assembling the team, but you can only assemble a virtual team until you have money in the bank to pay the team.
Right.
So there's considerable fundraising involved. Nowadays, because of reductions of federal funding to public television and reductions to federal funding to entities like the National Endowment for the Humanities, which I have benefited from in the past,
right,
we're on our own to a great extent. So that's
it's a more difficult
fundraising from its foundation grant writing to an extent. There are some state endowments. There are corporations if you want to go that route, and if you happen to have a good relationship with a corporation, but you need to keep that hard line of distance between any editorial involvement with any of your sponsors, with the actual content of the project, because that violates all PBS rules. And there's social media, there's crowdfunding,
right.
And now almost everyone in my line of work does some level of crowdfunding. And it just so happens our three most recent projects that I've been associated with, I've now been with the same team more or less for 3 projects in a row.
Right.
The bulk of our funding for the past 3 projects have been through Kickstarter and other crowdfunding.
That's wonderful. Okay.
And it's made a huge, huge difference. Mind you, it's also a huge endeavor.
Yeah.
To create the Kickstarter campaign, to manage the campaign, to carry out the campaign, and to fulfill some of the gifts that are involved after the campaign, after you've completed and made the film. Now, you can start a film with a Kickstarter. You can raise funds in the middle of the project. More often than not, the best way to do it is what are called completion funding or finishing funds, which is what we have done for. Now, it's what we're doing with the most current project, which actually follows From Sea to Shining Sea. It follows my film about Catherine Lee Bates and America the Beautiful. We have another project that's will complete this fall.
What does that mean? Does that mean you have like a segment of it and then have to fund for the additional part?
Well, there's pre-production.
Okay.
There's pre-production, there's research, fundraising, pre-production, there's production, and then there's editing, and color correcting, and audio mixing, and narration mixing, and all of those elements. And then there's the fine-tuning of that, so the post-production. And then in addition to post-production, you have distribution, marketing, screening, promotion, and there's various teams, overlapping teams involved with every single aspect of all of that. And I will tell you, my Frederick Law Olmsted film, I started research on that in 2007.
Wow.
When did it air nationally on public television?
When?
2014, 7
Oh my goodness.
years.
Wow.
Now, were we producing it all of those 7 years? No. We were producing it intensively the last year and a half of that cycle, from 2012 to 2013, and then it aired in 2014. But from beginning to end, idea to air date, it took 7 years of my time. Was I paid all of that time for my effort? No, and I calculate I spend more money,
Sure.
almost, than I earn on any of the film projects that I work on if I calculate out the hours I devote to these projects.
I can
There is sweat,
understand.
an incredible amount. Even Ken Burns, with
Yeah.
the resources that he and his team have, there's an extraordinary level of sweat equity that is involved with all of this kind of work, especially if we're doing it in public television, as opposed to the commercial streaming platforms where there might be a little bit more leeway with the cash involved.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I'll tell you, I know that you love what you do, but I think I respect what you do because preserving American history and these people is very important for people to understand. You mentioned Frederick Law Olmsted, and that is one of your best known works. Now, some people may not have heard that name before. So if you could tell us something that you've learned about him and why he's a significant figure in American history.
Well, he was a Renaissance man and a complex man, but most importantly, he actually introduced the entire idea of a public park to all of North America. He was the originator of really the concept of a genuine public park. And he is considered the father of landscape architecture as we know it as well in North America. But he led as an individual, all of my films are de facto biographic films. They're historical films, but I usually focus on a single individual or a couple of individuals in their relationship, as in the case of a prior film about Chief Joseph. But we tell Chief Joseph's story through the eye of a young U.S. Army lieutenant who fought him and then befriended him. Mm-hmm. That's an earlier project. We might get to that. Frederick Law Olmsted, most people will associate him with Central Park. If they have any connection to New York, they will associate the name with Central Park. If they have any association with Boston, they will associate his name with the Emerald Necklace.
Wow.
If they're from Buffalo, they will associate him both with the Buffalo Parks as well as the preservation of Niagara Falls and the design of the beautiful state park there. If they're in the nation's capital, they may or may not know that the father and son, Frederick Law Olmsted Sr. and Jr., put their touch on almost every landscape imaginable in our nation's capital. Not quite all, but many of the beloved landscapes in the nation's capital have some Olmsted design overlayer, historically father and son. And there were 3 generations of Olmsteds, but it's the father who set the mold. And Olmsted also was a real Renaissance man who struggled to find his in telling his biography. It's a fascinating story of a kind of confused young man, non-professionally trained in what would become his career, without even a college degree.
Wow.
He audited his brother's classes at Yale. Frederick Law did not matriculate at Yale, nor anywhere else. And he struggled on and off for arguably at least a decade and a half before he settled into what would become landscape design, and now we know it as landscape architecture. But when he did, he proved his brilliance in also the park systems of Louisville, Chicago, Milwaukee, and numerous other significant, and the Biltmore estate. And he was actually designing the ground towards the end of his life, the landscape for the entire White City, working with Daniel Burnham in Chicago to completely create this marvelous, incredible place known as by its original name, the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, more typically known as the White City. Simultaneous to that, when he was fighting all sorts of personal maladies and depression, and on the verge of senility, but not there yet, he was designing the Biltmore estate for George Vanderbilt in Asheville, North Carolina. And people go to the Biltmore estate and they see the gorgeous gardens next to the home. It's not the gardens. Yes, the gardens.
Yes.
It's the entire landscape.
It's amazing.
Mr. Olmsted master planned the entire huge landscape, and all of the trees, all the plantings, all the flowers, all the shrubbery, all the roadways, all the paths.
And it's beautiful. I've been
at-
there myself.
Isn't it
It's
ever?
amazing.
Now, that's a really large estate. He did do some private commissions, but most of his career, he was designing public parks
Wow.
for America and in Canada. The principal park and arguably the most famous urban park in all of Canada, Mount Royal Park in Montreal. Montreal is Mount Royal. It's Montreal, Mount Royal Park, and that's the central park of Montreal, and de facto the central park of Canada.
Wow.
And more. And it's just, again, as a biographic figure, it's fascinating. I also talk about Meriwether Lewis here on the Columbia River. And the reason I mention this, they both were complex personalities who we know for a fact Meriwether Lewis was manic depressive in today's parlance. In my analysis of Mr. Olmsted's life and career and writings, he was also manic depressive.
Really?
And he was suicidal.
Oh my
Unlike
goodness.
Meriwether Lewis, he did not take his own life, but I think he came close to it. We know he pondered it out loud.
Wow.
And there are some similar, and in my experience, most brilliant artists, composers, creative people in general have manic depressive tendency.
True.
The majority of them, as far as I've been able to determine, have. That's part of their genius. It's part of the package.
Yeah.
Some of them survive that genius through their lives. Others, because of alcohol and drugs and suicidal tendencies, don't, or their life ends prematurely. Anyway, this isn't my exclusive focus, but I have found that parallel in some of the figures.
No, there's definitely some truth to that. You
Some
can
of the-
see it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Some of the figures that I describe and depict in my work, both as a public speaker and as a writer producer of documentary films,
Yeah.
mostly for public television.
Yeah.
And that's the joy, is the interweaving of the two, because now I also have the dispensation to occasionally show some of my films while I'm on these. These are public television films. They're free and they're available for the public anyway. There aren't any copyright issues. We're not charging admission.
Right.
It's free for anyone, as I can show them on land. Anyone can find that particular film on YouTube and on pbs.org.
Yep.
I co-originated it. I originated it, actually, and I, in essence, co-produced it, although my official title in that instance is consulting producer.
Well, I want to let you all know that everything we're talking about, make sure you look at the bottom of this podcast, because we're going to have links to all of these films that we're talking about, and they're just chock full of information that's just so fascinating. And that was just one example of what we're talking about. Now, your latest project. Now, one of my favorite patriotic songs is America the Beautiful. Of course, my favorite rendition is the Ray Charles version. I tear up every time I hear it. But I didn't realize that there was a story. Well, there's a story behind every song, right? But there's a particular story behind the song America the Beautiful. And this is your latest project that you worked on. Is there anything you could share from that story that you've learned?
It's the latest project to be released.
Okay.
And I have to give credit where credit is due. And let me back up one page.
Sure.
Frederick Law Olmsted, Designing America, was directed by my colleague and partner in that instance, Laurence Cotton. He goes by Larry Hott, of Florentine Films.
Okay.
And the Catherine Lee Bates film, the full title is From Sea to Shining Sea, Catherine Lee Bates and the Story of America the Beautiful.
Okay.
Directed by my colleague and partner for several films, John DeGraff of Seattle, who's renowned for his work. Larry Hott is retired from active filmmaking. John DeGraff is still producing films.
Wonderful.
I saw America 250 coming a few years ago, and I had it in mind. I won't say necessarily our entire team did, but I did at the start. And we already were aware of an article or two, and then a book or two came to our attention that tells the backstory of this Catherine Lee Bates, poet, Wellesley College, Falmouth, Massachusetts, born and raised, Wellesley College educated, and Wellesley College humanities professor and scholar of English literature. In 1893, she took a train trip across America with her, most of the time with her female companion. Niagara Falls was her first stop. She actually met her female companion, fellow Wellesley College academic Catherine Coleman in Chicago, where they visited the White City. They experienced the White City, but also experienced slums not far away. This was the height of the Gilded Age. They continued to travel across America. The amber waves of grain of the American heartland all the way to Colorado Springs, where she had a summer teaching appointment at Colorado College, took a prairie wagon ride to the summit of Pikes Peak, was thrilled on the summit of Pikes Peak, but she and her colleagues, I think, could hardly catch her breath up there. They quickly came off the summit of Pikes Peak, and the words, the first draft of a little poem called America, spilled out in her hotel room that evening, if you will. She continued to revise it, of course, but it was first published, the first version of it was published on July 4, 1895, in The Congregationalist, which I believe was, in fact, a weekly publication for the Congregationalist Church.
Okay.
And that's the first draft that was published in 1895. It continued to go through revisions and iterations until it was matched finally with the a hymn called Materna, previously written by Samuel A. Ward. But the two of them were matched together finally as a complete, of a seamless piece.
Yeah.
Music and lyrics in 1910.
To become America the Beautiful.
To become America.
How interesting. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah. And here's the key. And this is the point that we make in our film, Brandi Carlile sang it magnificently for the most recent Super Bowl. And she sang it again just several days ago for July 4th, by the way. Even more emotively in the most recent rendition, I believe. Yeah. But in an interview for the Super Bowl, I'm paraphrasing, Brandi said to this effect, that this hymn, it is a hymn, it's a prayer, not a boast. It is a prayer, not a boast. I just read an article that was posted online that described it as a nationalistic tune. And I don't think that's the case. I dare say everyone associated with our film project would not describe it as a nationalistic tune.
I tend to agree with your thought process.
It's an aspirational tune. It's an aspirational tune. She's asking America, she's celebrating the American patriots, including our patriots of the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. But she's also critiquing, right in the lyrics, she's critiquing the economic inequities of the Gilded Age, and she's critiquing America's foray into imperialism with the Spanish-American War. It is there in the lyrics of all the verses, including the 2 or 3 verses that we typically do not sing when we sing it out loud together, or even when it's performed.
Right.
But all of those verses contain that and more.
Wow.
It was saying, America, we are a proud and noble nation. We have accomplished so much. We have a majestic landscape. But sometimes our public behavior and our official policies at the governmental level do not match the magnificence of our landscape. And they do not attain to the higher angels of our nature, to paraphrase and I'm afraid to murder Abraham Lincoln. But she wanted us to reach higher, to reach for nobler sense of self in our relationships with our fellow human beings and our fellow citizens. And that is the idea behind the entire song from start to finish.
Yeah.
And that's the story that her principal biographer tells, Melinda Ponder, who's based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. From Sea to Shining Sea is also the principal title of her biography. It's the principal title of our film. That's the story we share in our film, which is now on public television in many places across the United States, still in film screenings and in festival screenings. It's still in circulation. It's still out there.
You know, you're right about the prayer part of that, because I can't help I keep thinking of the line, God shed his grace on me. You know, despite anything that's going on, please, show grace. And I think so if that doesn't make you want to watch that documentary, I don't know what will. We're getting close to wrapping up, but I want to know if there's some favorite moment of yours out of all the people you've interviewed, out of all the stories you've heard. Is there anything, even in the film producing process, is there anything that really stood out to you that stays with you, that's important in your heart?
Well, I could answer that so many different ways.
I'm sure.
In the work I do as a guest speaker on small cruise vessels across America, I often meet people whose family background pertains directly to the history I'm trying to bring alive.
That's interesting.
This week, here on this vessel, we have a direct descendant of the founding pioneers of the city of Seattle.
Oh,
She
wow.
bears the family name, one of the family names, Boren, B-O-R-E-N. They came over with the Denny Party. They are the founding pioneers of Seattle. Tomorrow, the last day of this particular cruise, I'm doing my one-man theatrical reading in costume, in character,
Oh, wow.
of the voices of the men, women, and children who braved the Oregon Trail.
Oh, my
It's
goodness.
my final big program that I try to leave for the end of this particular trip on the Columbia Snake River,
Sure.
because it kind of leaves, it ends with a bang.
Yeah.
And I won't be talking about the Boren Party, the Denny Party in Seattle, but it's, boy, does it
connects.
echo? Does it
Yeah.
echo? Does it
Wow.
echo and does it rhyme? And more often than not, on almost everywhere I go across America, I'm meeting people like that on the very cruises that I'm serving, and it brings it so alive. It brings it so alive. Let me just give you one other example.
Sure.
One of my oldest films, which unfortunately is hard to find online. Its title is C.E.S. Wood, but it's about Charles Erskine Scott Wood, who was a young U.S. Army lieutenant, fresh from West Point, 1877, shipped to Fort Vancouver, historic Fort Vancouver, across the river from Portland, Oregon. The Nez Perce, we call it the Nez Perce War. Some of us use a different terminology. The Nez Perce conflict of 1877 broke out. Wood was shipped to the front because of his, he had already proven to be a wonderful writer and a wonderful sketch artist. And he was General O.O. Howard's adjutant. He was sent to the front to record the events of this war. He was shot at. He shot back. He engaged in the battle. Friends of his were slain. Then, I'm not going to take time for the details. Then he experienced the whole conflict through the eyes of the Nez Perce, through the experience of the Nez Perce. The people who saved Lewis and Clark's behinds twice over. And if it worked for the Nez Perce, Lewis and Clark would have never made it to the Pacific, would have not succeeded, would have not made it home intact if it weren't for the Nez Perce. And this terrible, unnecessary, brief, but violent conflict occurred in 1877. C.E.S. Wood recorded what we now call Chief Joseph's surrender speech in 1877.
Wow.
Publicized it across America, became one of the leading advocates for the plight of the Nez Perce, in particular Chief Joseph and his people. And then generations of C.E.S. Wood's family members to this present day have retained an unbelievably deep friendship with members of the Nez Perce tribe, including, most importantly, Chief Joseph's band. And there's a full backstory there that involves the story of the Appaloosa horse and how important it is to the Nez Perce, and the failure of a gift, fulfillment of a gift in the late 19th century, the failure of the fulfillment of that gift, which was finally fulfilled in the late 20th century, of a gift horse back to the Nez Perce to reestablish their herd of Appaloosas. And C.E.S. Wood went on to become one of the founders of Portland.
Yeah.
One of the leading thinkers, he would be called one of the leading influencers of the day, of Portland and of the Pacific Northwest and of the American West, because of everything he did as a poet, writer, essayist, scholar, attorney, civil libertarian, and public progressive. And it's an extraordinary, but everything that he became subsequently arguably can be traced to his participation and documentation of the Nez Perce War and his friendship with Chief Joseph and his people. And that's a story I'm also telling tomorrow morning on the final day of the cruise.
I'll be there. I'll be there. We're learning so much today in this interview, let me tell you. Now, I don't know if you could share with us anything like this, but is there anything you're working on right now that we can look forward to?
One film is being completed, and,
Okay.
and I have to say I'm really in a strictly supportive role on this one, so I can talk about it. It's
Okay.
my colleague John DeGraff's film, and it's called Herman Daly and the Gospel of Growth. I don't want to take time now to unpack it, but it's
Sure.
basically about the individual who created the field of ecological economics.
Okay.
Of sustainability and ecological economics. His name is Herman, an American scholar, economist named Herman Daly. It's really John's personal film. I'm of support to it. I'm helping in one way or another to complete it, and to eventually to promote it and market it and distribute it and so forth. I can't say I have much intellectual ownership over that particular project, although I can certainly say that about our prior films. It's not just Catherine Lee Bates and the It's not just From Sea to Shining Sea. It's a prior film called Stuart Udall, The Politics of Beauty.
Yes. Okay.
Stuart Udall, The Politics of Beauty. There's maybe one or two other films out there. They're projects that are so early in their stage, lacking funding and lacking solid definition that I'm hesitant to say anymore.
Okay. No, listen, and again, we're going to have links to all of this information for you, so you definitely want to check out these films. Do you mind if we get a little silly for a second?
Sure, let's get silly.
We're going to do a lightning round, okay? Yeah. And you just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
You bet.
They're going to start off easy. They'll get a little difficult, but they're not difficult, trust me. Yeah. Okay, you ready? Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Pineapple or on pizza?
Yes.
Yes, me too. Beatles or Elvis?
Oh, Beatles.
Camping or hotel?
Camping.
See, I always thought,
at least until recent years.
I was going to say, I thought a happy camper was the one that was leaving the camp.
Well.
favorite historical figure?
Well, I've already named a couple, but there
got a
certainly are more. Abraham Lincoln,
Okay.
FDR,
Favorite
Winston Churchill.
Oh, you got a lot. You got a lot.
Okay.
It's hard to pick one. You're right. Favorite U.S. national park?
That's also a tough one. I suppose it's a tie between Yosemite and Yellowstone. There are others in the mix.
Okay. If you had to name one book that everyone should read, what would it be?
Wow.
I know, right?
Wow, one book. Holy cow.
It's hard to pick one.
Okay. So can I change that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Today's July. What is today? July 6th?
Today is July 6th.
Thank you. Today's July 6th, just 2 days after July 4, America 250. We're still doing America 250, aren't we?
Absolutely, all year.
I think everyone at least once a year should gather with friends and family to read the Declaration of Independence out loud.
I love that.
Together.
That's a good answer. A great answer. And the favorite place that you've ever visited?
Oh boy.
Because I'm sure you've been all over the place.
I was fortunate to live in London for many years.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a Bostonian. I certainly have my favorite parts of New England, one of which would be Acadia National Park, or really all of Mount Desert Island, which Acadia National Park occupies a portion of. I'm also, I love the outdoors. I'm still an outdoorsman, very much. I also love urban environments. Some people go one way or the other. I love both. As a city, nothing can beat London. I also had the good fortune to live in Spain for a period of time.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
And I absolutely love Spain.
Wow.
So there's several answers for you.
Love that. All right, so we're pretty much closed here, but I do always want to ask our guests, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of wisdom from your life's work, what would it be?
Ask questions, dig deeper.
Love that answer.
And aim higher. Aim higher.
Laurence, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been so fascinating hearing about your career and all this historic information. And again, folks, we're going to have links to all of these documentary films. You've got to check them out. They're going to be wonderful.
Michael, it's a pleasure to meet you and to be serving with you as the resident entertainer. I'm the guest lecturer at the same time on one of these wonderful small ship cruise vessels owned and operated by American Cruise Lines. What fun it is and what a joy it is to actually work together on the same boat at the same time.
Well, the feeling is absolutely mutual. And folks, if you've never heard about American Cruise Lines, or if you were thinking about American Cruise Lines, we're going to have a link for that as well, because these are incredible itineraries that we have and full of historic locations. You got to check it out. Well, a very special thank you to our guest, Laurence Cotton. And thank you for listening to another episode of Elite Spotlight. Hey, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. You can find Elite Spotlight wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can watch full episodes on YouTube. And don't forget, everything that we discussed today, you'll see links for all of those sources right here in the podcast. I'm Michael Masci. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. God bless y'all.